My wife has been gone for 6 years and I still haven't moved her rocking chair from the porch. Some things you just leave where they are. The chair, the half-finished crossword she kept in the kitchen drawer, the bedroom on the upper floor of our farmhouse that I haven't slept in since the January she died. I do my sleeping downstairs now on the couch mostly, with my dog Rex curled at my feet and the television running low for company. It's a big house for one man, but I've never been able to convince myself to leave it. 43 acres of the same land I've worked since I was 22. The land doesn't change. That used to comfort me. The first time I saw her in the window, I told myself it was nothing. I was walking the property perimeter, something I do most evenings around 9. Rex jogging ahead of me, when I happened to glance up at the second floor. The upper bedroom. The window caught the last of the blue dusk light, and for a fraction of a second I saw a shape behind the glass, a silhouette. The outline of a person standing back from the pane, partially obscured by the old curtains my wife had hung 20 years ago. I stopped walking. Rex stopped with me, ears up. The shape was gone, if it had ever been there. I went inside and checked the room. Nothing. The curtains hanging still. The furniture exactly as I'd left it, or rather exactly as my wife had left it, because I don't move things in that room. The air in there has a particular quality, like the inside of a closed book. I stood in the doorway for a long time and told myself I'd seen a shadow thrown by a passing car on the road. It happens. Then I went back downstairs and didn't sleep well. 2 nights later, Rex woke me up. He'd been growling for at least a minute before I fully surfaced from sleep. A low, continuous sound from somewhere at my feet that I registered first as part of a dream. When I sat up, he was already on his feet, facing the ceiling, listening to something above us. The upper bedroom is directly overhead. The sound was subtle, the kind of sound an old house makes when the wood shifts in cold weather. Except it was August, and the wood in this house had been settling for 40 years, and I know every sound it makes. These were footsteps, moving slowly across the floor above me. Someone trying not to make noise and not entirely succeeding. I didn't call the police, not yet. I got my flashlight from the nightstand and went upstairs. Empty, same still air, same curtains, same closed book silence. But something was different, and it took me almost a full minute to identify it. The curtain on the left side of the window, the side nearest the door, was hanging at a slightly different angle than I remembered. Not dramatically, just enough that someone who'd looked at that curtain every day for 20 years would notice. I stood in the center of that room for a long time. A week passed. I started checking the house before bed, and every window, every door. I found nothing. I started sleeping with the light on downstairs. Rex seemed unsettled in a general way, restless in the evenings, reluctant to go outside after dark. Then I came downstairs one morning and found the kitchen light on. I am a precise man. I have lived alone long enough to know my own habits completely. I turn the kitchen light off before I sleep. I had turned it off. It was on. I called the county sheriff's non-emergency line, and a deputy came out that afternoon. He checked the house, checked the outbuildings, walked the property line. Found nothing. He was professional about it. He told me to call again if anything else happened. That night I went upstairs. I don't know what made me do it. Some impulse I can't account for. The same instinct that makes you press a bruise to confirm it still hurts. I pushed open the bedroom door and reached for the light switch and turned it on. The clothes were everywhere. My wife's clothes. I had packed them carefully into boxes after she died and stored them in the closet, folded, labeled, the way she would have done it herself. Now they covered the floor, the bed, the chair by the window, blouses, skirts, a yellow cardigan she'd worn until the elbows went thin. Someone had taken them out and put them there. I was still processing this, still standing in the doorway, with my hand on the light switch, when I saw the woman. She was standing in the far corner near the window, still, watching me. She was shorter than my wife had been, with dark hair, and she was wearing what looked like layers of clothing, the way people do when everything they own is on their body. She didn't move, didn't speak. I have been in physical confrontations in my life. I know what fear feels like. What I felt in that moment wasn't fear exactly. It was something colder, more systemic, like every circuit in my body, simultaneously deciding the situation, required a different kind of response. I moved toward her. She ran, through the door, past me. I felt the displacement of air as she went, down the stairs and out the front door before I'd made it to the hallway. By the time I got outside, the porch was empty. Rex was at the fence line barking at the dark field beyond. I searched for an hour, found nothing. No footprints I could identify in the dry summer ground. No gap in the fence, nothing. Sat on my wife's rocking chair until the sky started to go gray and I tried to understand what had just happened in that house and what it meant that a stranger had found a way inside. The room I couldn't bring myself to enter and had laid out the clothes of a dead woman across the floor. I still don't have an answer to that. I should have gone straight home. That's the sentence I keep coming back to. It was 2:20 in the morning on a Wednesday in October and I had just finished a 12-hour shift, driving catering supplies across 3 counties, and I should have pointed my car toward my apartment and driven there directly. Instead, I was sitting in a McDonald's drive-thru, third car from the speaker, running on caffeine and the particular restless energy that comes from too many hours behind a wheel. That's when I noticed the car. It was parked in the far corner of the lot, an old dark-colored sedan, backed into the space so the front faced outward. Tinted windows, engine off, as far as I could tell. No movement, at 2:20 in the morning in a lot, where the restaurant itself was drive-through only. There was no obvious reason for a car to be parked there. I told myself it was someone eating in their vehicle. I did that myself sometimes. I got my food and drove away. The nature preserve is about 4 minutes from my apartment, a few hundred acres of forest on a hillside, with a paved loop road that circles up to a lookout at the summit. The preserve itself closes at dusk, but the road stays accessible to foot traffic, and the lookout is the kind of view that makes you remember why you live somewhere. I hadn't been up there in months. It seemed like the right kind of place to eat, bad drive-through food, and decompress before trying to sleep. The gravel pullout at the preserve entrance was empty when I arrived. I parked, turned the engine off, and was unwrapping my food when headlights swung into the pullout behind me. It was the sedan from the McDonald's lot. I sat very still. The other car parked 20 feet back and cut its lights. Nothing happened for almost a full minute. No one got out. No window came down. I called my friend Owen, who lived nearby and kept unusual hours. He answered immediately, said he'd been awake reading, and I told him where I was and asked him to come. I kept my voice even. I didn't want to say out loud what I was thinking. He arrived 9 minutes later. We both got out of our cars and started up the road toward the lookout. And when I glanced back at the sedan before the road curved out of sight, I watched all 4 doors open simultaneously. 4 men got out. They stood in the gravel and looked at each other without speaking. Then they looked toward the road we had just walked up. "Keep moving," I said to Owen. He had seen them. He kept moving. The lookout at the summit had a low stone wall along the edge and a view of the city that could make you briefly forget any situation you were in. We sat on the wall and I ate my food and we talked. And for maybe 10 minutes I managed to feel like I was just a person having a late night out with a friend. Then we heard them coming up the road. 3 men appeared first, passing a cigarette between them. They were loud in the way people are when they want to be heard, laughter designed to carry. They walked directly to where we were sitting without looking for their own spot. And the one in front, tall, heavily tattooed, a silver ring through his nose, smiled at us and asked if we wanted to smoke. We said no. One of the others said something dismissive and laughed. I don't know what made me say it. The question came out before I'd made a conscious decision to ask it. "Were you at the McDonald's on Route 9 earlier?" The smile left the tattooed man's face immediately. His 2 companions shifted their posture in the same moment, a synchronized stillness that felt rehearsed. None of them said anything for several seconds. 3 men. There had been 4 in the car. I felt Owen go tense beside me. The tattooed man eventually said he worked nights, that he'd just gotten off. He pulled up his hoodie to show a uniform underneath, dark shirt, logo visible. Said he came up here after every shift. Said his friends met him here. 3 friends. I counted again. 3 standing in front of us. Where was the 4th? "We're heading out," Owen said, standing. We started down the road. Owen stopped after 30 feet and grabbed my arm and pointed into the tree line on our left. The 4th man was standing in the trees about 15 feet off the path. He was partially concealed by shadow, but I could see him clearly enough, and I could see what he was holding, though I couldn't identify it in the dark. Something long, held at his side. He saw us looking at him. He started to move. We ran. The road down was longer than I remembered. I could hear Owen's breathing beside me and the sound of 4 sets of feet on the pavement behind us. Getting closer, and I focused on the gravel pullout at the bottom like it was the only thing that existed in the world. We hit the cars, got in, got out. I was doing 60 before I'd finished closing the door. Owen called me when we were both clear. We met at his street and sat in our cars for a long time, with the windows down before either of us spoke. He had taken a photograph on the road. He showed it to me. 4 figures, partially lit, enough detail to identify faces. He had taken a photograph on the road. He showed it to me. 4 figures, partially lit, enough detail to identify faces. We went back to the McDonald's the next morning and spoke to a manager. He looked at Owen's photograph for a long time before he told us what he told us. The tattooed man had worked there until 6 months ago. He'd been fired after repeatedly harassing a female employee, his ex-girlfriend, showing up in the parking lot after her shifts, following her car. A restraining order had been issued. He had been violating it by camping in the lot on her shift nights, watching the drive-thru. The manager looked at the photograph again and said he'd be calling the police that afternoon. We left without finishing our coffees. I've gone back to that lookout once since then. In daylight with Owen. The view was the same. The stone wall was the same. The tree line where the 4th man had been standing was just trees. But I found myself looking at the shadows between them for longer than I needed to. And I didn't stay until dark.